All right, I'm recording. So we will have a test, a two-parter test. The first part of that test is going to be in a week, next Wednesday. The only person who told me about a conflict, it has a class that nobody else has. So I will deal with that student separately. But so nobody else told me they had a major exam on one of these days. So Wednesday will be the first test, and then I'll make up my own mind between whether it be. So the first part of the test will be on April 6th. That will be the sort of probably SVG and what I call parent-child neighbor thing. And then the other part of the test will either be the 11th or the 13th. And still nobody's told me anything to make me decide one way or the other. Okay. So test part one, test two, part one in a week, and then the second half to follow, the React part to follow that. Here, Justin, your umbrella's in the other lab. Okay, so here we go. React, last thing today, I don't even have you do a lab. Yes. What labs and homeworks are on the exam? Okay, so the last lab ended at 7. The last test ended at lab 7. Lab 8 is XML. I'm saving XML for test 3. So not lab 8. Lab 8 is due for credit, but not on the test. So the question about when are things eligible for full credit, I need that lab for full credit. But it's not on the test. So the XML is not on the test. The test is the SVG 9 and 10. And then we started, and then 11 was the dreaded neighbors. Yeah. And then we started with 12 React. 13 is more React, that's on the test. 14 more React. So just all of our React, our grid React, our checkbox React, our radio button React, those are all fair game for the test. Probably the part two of test 2, which will be in the sort of second week in April. And today's lab, today, what we're doing today, so 16 is still fair game for the test, so that better be done before we have that part of the test. What we're doing today, I'm not really testing new material up today, and rather this React Film Noir is really just sort of part of the React part of the practice test, but I'm actually making you do it. So that won't be due, but it would be silly not to do it because it's on the test. It is a previous test. So it gives you a good idea of what was on my tests. Okay, so what was that again in review? The 8 is due, but not on any test, because it'll be on test 3. So 8, don't worry about it for the test, but worry about it if it's not done, worry about getting it in for credit. 9 and 10, SVG, scalar vector graphics, SVG. So that is on the test. That's better. That's definitely on the test. That's part one. That's in a week. The neighbor thing, lab 11, that's next week. That's, next week, next Wednesday. And then the React stuff the following week, that'll be part 2 of test 2. And everything but today is fair game for that React test. Anything else? And don't be like my Python students who are, half of the class is desperately trying to figure out how to do Python right now, to how to do Flask. So don't treat React the way they're treating Flask, doing it at the last minute. I do the sort of the hard stuff in the middle of the class. So I'm trying to do the React now. I think, at least in my mind, Vue is easier. So trying to get the hard stuff out of the way before your brains melt in the spring. Mm-hmm. All right. Any other questions? All right. Yes, no? The test is a week. I always give you a week notice. So I've been talking about it, but I didn't make official notice. I'll make official notice. The test will be, the first part of test 2 will be on the 6th. And that you're expecting to be scalar vector graph. So SVG and the neighbor stuff. It will be like, I gave you 2 SVG labs, one where you sort of made your own thing, and one where I said, I want this, and I want it to be this big and this color, and so on. The test will be like that. So you will not be making any design decisions, but you will be doing syntax. If I tell you what I want and where I want it, can you make it so? So it's just about syntax. Okay, in a week. So test 2, part 1 in a week. All right. Any questions? No. Any more questions? No. All right. So here's the thing in React. Then I sort of want to show you to give you an idea. But then I'm not testing it. I'm not making you do a lab on it or testing it. So it's more just to sort of complete your education. So we've been writing React. We sort of designed the page, and we have, we're using React to sort of generate the page. And we've had a React class that extends the React component. So we wrote a class that extended the component. Now we're going to make, in this example, one React class that uses another React class. So it's another sort of level of sophistication. So how to make one class use another, at least one way to do it. Okay, so I downloaded it, I extracted it. I am opening code. I open to the folder because I want to use live server. I don't think I need live server here because I'm not reading a local file, but I just like to be in the habit. All right. And so I've been doing my little separating the JavaScript from the CSS from the HTML. Too many things open, it's confusing me. So let me open all 3 again. Okay, so here's the HTML. I have a link to the style, which I called reg CSS. I have my 2 links to the React CDN. and I have my connection to the Babel CDN.
Thank you.
And there's not much to the style. I have classes that are fixed and classes that are changing. So when I'm changing something, the writing will be in red. When it's fixed, the writing's going to be black. So that's what the style's all about, to tell me, so I will have these items. When I'm changing the item, it should appear red. When I'm done and it's settled down again, it should turn back to black. Okay. So that was the style. I have my CDNs. I will have, I think, in the description of the test, the lab today is now he made me open all these things and now too many things open, but today's lab is nothing to do with what I'm talking about, but more of an old practice test. But I want to give you an idea of, I mean, you have to do this, but I'll give you an idea now what I'm like on the test. And so you see it's grid, so I use some grid. There is a JSON if you saw, so I'm reading some JSON. But that's not what I wanted to talk about now. Do I or don't I tell you to connect to the CDNs? That's what I'm asking. Link to the React and possibly Babel code. So that is one of the instructions. So I am nice. I do remind you to do this, because if you don't do this, then none of it's all about React. I don't care if you can make this page some other way without React. The test will be about React. So it'll like use React to yada yada yada. And if I accidentally say use Vue to yada yada yada, this is the React test, so it's about React. Okay, so we need this to use React. If we don't have it, it's not going to work. If you're the kind that doesn't like Babel, I've been teaching it with Babel, but if you're like smart and don't think Babel is a waste of time, then fine. You have to use React. You don't have to use Babel. What else do I have in the HTM? The target where I'm going to put things and the link to the code. So almost everything's in the code. That's one of our main ideas of React. And again, this time, almost everything before was in one React class. This time I have two React classes. I have a course and I have a roster, and then I'm putting a roster on the page. Okay. And then what a roster is going to be is pretty much an array of courses. But it's a class, so it will be an array of classes, an array of courses, plus the methods that go with that. Okay, so I have, here I am at the end, 112, I'm putting it on the page. And then I have my two classes, the roster and the course, starting with capitals, don't forget that. Okay, so let's figure out what's in a course. The only thing I'm going to have in the state of a course, because things are going to come from roster, but in the state of a course, I need to know whether I'm editing the course or not editing the course. The rest of the data is going to really belong to what I get from roster. So that's my state. At least that's the way I'm doing it here. If I'm editing a course, I set the state of the editing variable to true, and I'm alerting out that I am changing that course. So I'm alerting my user that something's changing, or really sort of alerting me. And I'm also changing the state to editing true. I can remove a course. And if I'm removing a course, I'm going to have a property of a course that calls, so I will have an array of courses, and to remove a course, I will take it out of the array. And the array of courses belongs to the roster. So this props remove property, this is a way for me to sort of communicate with that roster class. So I'm going to sort of remove property is going to work with that other class. So I have these two classes, course and roster, and they need to communicate. And using this sort of link through props is a way to do that. But I need to know which one I'm eliminating. And so I need to know the index. So the index will be which course I'm eliminating, and then remove properties will be a link to a method that's going to go to my array of courses that are in roster and take that course out. Okay. Save the course is I have some data relevant to a course, and I am going to save it. So first I say that I'm saving the course, so I'm no longer editing it. I'm now ready to say that I'm done editing it and I've saved it. And I'm alerting out that I saved it, and I'm alerting sort of what I changed. Okay. Here is my fake information about a course. It's a course name and a teacher and a daytime. And then I am establishing each thing individually. So this is me sort of effectively going to the page and getting what's on the page for the course number and the teacher and the daytime. And then I am making my course equal to so I'm editing the property. So again, I'm going up to the roster class and saying, which course am I changing and what's the data that I'm changing it to. All right. Then I have to actually render the class. It's different if I'm editing or if I'm not editing. If I'm editing, then I'm making these inputs, so then I can change them. So I have an input of the text type for the course number, and an input of the text type for the teacher, and an input of the text type for the daytime. And I'm getting their old values originally. That's the default value, what they were originally. Then the user might change them. And then there's a button that says whether I'm going to save my changes. If I'm not editing, then these are spans. So a span is something you're not editing. And I have two buttons. One to edit the course, which will put me into the editing mode, and remove, which will get rid of the course. Let's at this stage maybe run it so you can see what the hell I'm talking about. Okay, so it is a very lovely design, as you can see. I have some, each line is sort of a course, and then I have a roster, which is the set of courses. Then there's some data defining the course. the subject and number for the course, the professor for the course, the time, the day and time for the course. If I say edit, so I'm going to edit the Redmond course. I changed to the editing style, so now that made everything this red. And instead of Redmond, I'll make him Greenmond and save. Okay. So I can work with the data in the course. I can then remove a course. Let me remove me. If I remove McCooey, you'll tell her and I'll hear about it. So I'll remove myself. Okay. So it's not going to any database or cookie or anything like that. It's not going to be remembered for all time. If I refresh the page, everything comes back. It's just sort of like while it's going. We're writing JavaScript, you know that. It's not, these changes are not remembered beyond a refresh. Okay. But we have two class levels, two classes, the course and the roster. And I've just told you about the course. Okay. But a course is sort of one of these lines. And so when I render the course, I have like a remove button. But removing a course is more of an array thing. I'm going to take it out of the array. And so I need a way for these two classes to communicate. And so we saw in courses this reference to properties. And it's those props that we're using to get these two classes to communicate. So when we're in the roster class and creating an array of courses, we're going to assign them some props. And some of those props are going to be actually connections to methods. Okay. So let's look one more time, now that we've seen it running, what I just said about a course. The only property I had in the state, all the other information is coming from roster, but the only thing in the state itself here in the course was whether we are editing or not. And that gets assigned to the class. And then the class, I had a styling to display whether I was editing. There was an edit course. So when I clicked the edit button, I brought me to this method and I said that I was editing and it brought up this alert. So when I clicked edit, it brought up this alert that said edit course, and then it made it editing, made the class the editing class, so that it was a different style. Okay, that's what that did. Remove the course is communicating with the bigger class. Props is our way of communicating with the bigger, the roster class. And so it's going to have this thing called remove property. Save courses also communicates with the bigger thing. So here it is, props. But the first thing we do is establish the data that we're going to change to. So I'm going to go up to the roster, just pick out which course it is I'm editing, and then this is the data that I'm editing it to. And then there was the rendering of the class, and the rendering was different depending on whether we were editing. If we're editing, not only are we in the changing class, but we are also have input types. If we are not editing, then we are working with spans. Okay. Now let's look. So that was course. And we see that course wants to communicate with roster in those props. So now let's see what roster is and what that communication is. So here's the roster, and here's all the information in the roster state. So here is the student's roster. It has a property courses, which is an array of objects, and there's all the information. That the course number was CSC 341, and the teacher was Blum, and the daytime was Monday, Wednesday, 12:30. Okay, so that's where, so it's in the roster that we have that particular information. We said we can remove a course. So when you clicked the remove button or the delete button, whatever it was in a course, it communicated with this. So let's look at, there's a remove property, which connects us to the roster remove course function. So each course, I'm getting the course number, the teacher, the daytime, the remove property, and the edit property. So I'm using the properties to connect to the functions. So here's the remove function. I have my roster is an array of courses. If I choose the button to remove a course, I come through the properties of the individual course over to the roster class and up to this function. And then I console log that I'm removing. You didn't see that because it's console log. I am grabbing the state of courses. That's my array courses. I'm in roster and my state is a set of courses. I'm splitting it, which means I'm getting, basically I'm slicing out. I'm splicing, and that is taking out. So if you like splice film, then you're cutting out some of the film. So I'm cutting out an element of my array, the ith course of my array. I played my usual React game. I made a copy of the courses. I edited the copy, and then I made the copy, set that back to the original. So I set that to be the current state. So that's me removing a course. If I'm editing a course, I have to know which course it is, and I need to know the new information. I console log that I'm editing the course. I make a copy of all my courses. I'm editing the ith course, so the property, the ith course becomes the new information. And then again, my usual React, make a copy, edit the copy, then make the copy the new state. So that's me editing a course. I'm going to jump down to render and then come back up to each course. When I'm rendering, I am going to display the array of courses. So I have this state courses map. Remember, map is basically a fancy kind of a loop. And then I have a function to handle my loop. When I created immediately right here, the function to handle the mapping, to handle the iteration, the looping. I had multiple things claiming the word this. And so I want this not to belong to any method, but I want this to belong to the class, and particularly in the roster class. So that's why I have this weird separation here. I have a function called each course that I'm using when I'm mapping. And then I it handles that mapping function. But again, I was having this issue of too many things claiming the word this. So it worked when I separated it. And there's probably another way I could do it, but this worked. So this is what I have for now. So what am I doing? I'm saying return my course. That's my other class. I'm saying it has an index I, and it has the item, which is all the data I need. So I'm setting the course number to be item course number, the teacher to be item course teacher, the daytime. So these are properties in my course. So they were not, that data about a course is not in the state of the course, but in the properties of the course when I render. This is this is a funny way to pass some information about. So okay. So this was me getting the information from roster. The roster was a set of classes that had information about the classes. And this is me sort of passing that information down to the course level through properties. And here's me connecting my properties of giving an individual course access to the roster level functions. So this is data that came from roster, individual roster data, or roster was an array of courses. So this is me giving the data, individual pieces of data of a course to the course, but it's coming from roster. And then here's me giving access to my remove function and access to my edit function. Okay. And so that was this weird, and I just have this weird separation because I had this competition for the word this. If you did your homework and read about this, this is confusing, and different things can claim this, like functions can claim this and objects can claim this. And I wanted this to be my class this. To handle that at the class level, I can say, me equals this, and then refer to me. And then if the function claims this, I don't have to worry about it because I have the class this remembered. So there are other ways to handle this. But this was just the way I did it in this particular example. And so now I'm down at the bottom and displaying the page. So this was just, again, sort of my most sophisticated React example. Not that it looks like hell, but it's more sophisticated than the other things we did because I've got two React classes that must communicate. Okay. Not what you have to do. You don't have to do anything like this. I'm not going to make you do a lab. I'm not going to test this stuff. I just wanted to show it to you so that you sort of, if you go on in React, not in any class that we offer, but in your life, that you've seen this one more sophisticated example. The lab is a practice test for regular old React. Again, not due before the test, but do it before the test. It's practice. I gave you the other two practices you don't have to do. They don't say lab, so they're not due. So where are we at? So practice test 2, these two things are not due, but lab 17, which is also part of the practice test, is due. Why, I don't know, but that's the way I made it. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing Monday, maybe moving on to view, or maybe talking about timers. Wednesday, next Wednesday is the first part 1 of test 2. Questions for the recording? No questions for the recording.